Hey folks, this is Founder Laerun, and I'm here with Braizhauler. And also I'm here with Lady Shel. She went to go flip her burrito, I guess. Let me get rid of that back feed. Yes, so thanks for showing up, folks. What we're going to do today is talk about a module that I've been picking at for about a year. And I wanted to make sure that I have a little bit of community input since all of you have contributed to our community or that you might be curious about how to put together your own module. Most of this is completely homebrew. The artwork that I had commissioned, the maps I had commissioned, it's just taken a long time to do this. I don't expect to have all the art finished until about the end of July. So I still have some more, a little bit more artwork to be done, but the map is finally to a point where I can share it. I don't know if I'm going to kickstart this thing or if I'm going to just put it on the DMs Guild. But however it comes out, I'd like a little input from you guys. And the first thing we're going to end up doing here is going through the locations, the characters, the overview of the story, and then we'll pick one element to work on. And then hopefully the next stream I'll have enough work done so we can go on to the next topic. I get Braizhauler here as kind of an advisor for Pathfinder because this adventure is not a Forgotten Realms adventure, but it's also can be adapted to any rule set. It's not really set in any particular setting, although Braze informed me that there is an area in the Pathfinder world that would fit this particular scenario. So that's a good thing.
Hey, absolutely. There are several different places where it could be, depending on what direction you want to go with it.
All right,
Okay.
so is Lady Shell here?
Lady Shel is here.
Hey, Lady Shell. Welcome. Did you get your burrito flipped?
I did.
All right, so we're gonna kind of go through the story a little bit. I don't want to bore you all, but it is important to have some context of what's happening here. So first and foremost, this is a high fantasy setting. It is not low magic or Conan style, but it's also not Forgotten Realms. So it's not really particular set in any specific region. You could probably adapt it to wherever you want to put it. The main thing is the story and the characters and the different elements of the game that I want to put forth. So I have the map pretty much figured out where things are going to happen. I have a lot of the characters figured out, but I don't necessarily have all their names. There are some personalities that I still need to develop in the town. I have to still figure out which monsters I'm including, which I have a list here of all the different creature types that I'm going to use if I decide to make encounters or any wandering monsters. I don't imagine there'll be a lot of wandering monsters unless the characters go into the forest and they go too far off the rails or something like that. But for the most part, the encounters will be um, in the module will be planned. They'll be balanced for the most part, and I'm hoping to make sure that I get out the story the most. So, does anybody have any questions about what we're doing or why we're doing this or what the whole purpose of this stream is?
I think I'm pretty well settled as far as things go.
Okay. How about you, Shell?
Yeah, I'm fine. I just wanted to mention that you are building this in D&D 5e, but like you said, it's adaptable for multiple rule sets.
Yes.
So no questions in the chat or suggestions or anything. We are listening and watching.
All right. So, to give you guys some context, this is a kind of a regional map here that is displaying the main area of this adventure. I would imagine this adventure can be done in about 3 to 5 sessions, maybe 7, depending on how your game master runs it and how efficient you are with Fantasy Grounds and with the players that you have and such. Um, there are 3 main groups that are involved with the story. There are some main characters, and the funny thing about it is the characters that the people are going to be playing in the game, they can be pre-made, which I'm going to make some pre-gens for this, but they can also bring their own. And I'm expecting that this will be levels 3 to 5 for as far as levels go. So being that if you only have 4 players, you probably can get away with like a level 4 or 5 characters. But if you have 6 characters, you can probably get away with level 3. So that's probably how I would recommend it in the module for as far as that goes. As far as homebrew goes, the setting, some of the names, places, and things are homebrew. I am going to create my own creatures in regards to the main characters. But as far as the creatures involved, there's really not too many unique creatures that I can think of. But there are some very common creatures that come from all different rule sets, and 90% of these, I believe, are SRD. So when I'm creating this module, the only thing I really have open are the SRD. I have these other 2 supplements from the DM's Guild, but I'm just using those as a guide. Those are Fae related content, so a lot of the story centers around wild woods and Fae, and that's the name of the woods is the Wildwood. So without further ado, I think I'm going to get going on the actual story part of this. Uh,
Yes.
so a
So
little.
this is
Go ahead.
this is pretty much your entire world map for this adventure. You
Yes.
probably won't need any more than this. Do you intend for town to be a fairly big part of the interaction, or is it mostly wood?
I think the town would be at the most maybe a third overall,
Okay.
because you kind of have to have a place to start. They're going to do a little research in that town, and that is basically where the adventure is going to start, and it's going to return there a couple times as well.
Weren't you gonna have like like not a message board, but a board where people can sign up for
Yes,
quests or something? So there's gonna be an offshoot from town to wherever people want. So it's gonna be kind of what do you call
sandbox.
it? Yeah, sandboxy.
Yeah, so I'll have a few elements of that in case the game master or the players don't want to follow the actual storyline. It gives them a few other locations to go to, so they're not just getting railroaded into the story. I'm
Mhm.
hoping to make the story interesting enough to where they'd want to investigate and look into the plot.
We always hope.
Yeah, we always hope, and we plan for everything, and maybe they probably won't do any of it. So that's
I have
something.
found that to be the case every now and again.
Oh yeah, you think you got everything covered, and you don't. So the first thing is I wanted to give a little preamble of the history of the area. So the town here is called Upriver, but at one time it was called Kedwick's Crossing. And Kedwick was an explorer and like a logger and a miner. And he was one of the first explorers in the region. At least he thought he was. Back then, he had befriended the dwarves that lived in the area. And the dwarves are called the Dragonjaw clan. Apparently, their heritage was mining and taking ore and gold out of the mountains. And they have a base, like a camp and like a city up there. And at one time, they had slew a dragon that had lived in the area. It was a really nasty green dragon that they killed. And ever since then, they took on the Dragon Jaw name. They probably had a different name at one point, but they were the original peacekeepers in the region, and they were very well respected at that time. And they reigned the area for quite some time until these measly humans came in. So when Kedwick showed up, he had a bridge commissioned to be built. Now, a lot of the map here is not supposed to be perfectly,
Not done with
geometrically
the
sound.
scale.
Yeah, it's not really to scale. It's more or less to give you the immersion more. It's designed so that you can get an idea of where things are in relation to each other. But for the most part, this is a town that relies on the resources in the area to survive. So initially, it was like a logging mining camp. And then after that, once the loggers and the miners started making money, they started building homes. Well, then after that, the women came in and the children, and before you know it, you got yourself a little town. So they,
Seem to be upriver for most of the forest. That's kind of bizarre.
yeah, they're upriver. So they,
That's fair. Sounds like they've been clearing a lot.
yeah, they have actually. So after a while, they started to outgrow what they had become. So they started making farms and raising livestock. And they had problems a few times throughout the history of the region. They had a couple really bad droughts, and that really messed up their economy because there's a main tradeway that they travel on, which is down here at this crossroads. The caravans come through there and they'll stop by, and everyone will gather around these crossroads and trade. So all the farmers and livestock and everything, they have like a festival, and starts at this fork in the road and goes all the way into town. And they do a lot of trading. So they have lumber, minerals, gold, all kinds of resources. They grow a lot of fruit like apples and pears and those sorts of things. They do have some livestock and vegetables, those sort of things. But they're well known for lumber. So if you wanted to order some kind of lumber for building, they have that as well. So in it, to answer the call of the people and the bad droughts that they had experienced, old man Kedwick, when he was middle age, to decide that he wanted to build a dam, and that's when his son was little. And they commissioned the dwarves to have him help him build the foundation. So some of the relatives of the dwarves, and even some of the same dwarves that built the bridge, helped them build the foundation of the dam. So this was actually at one time it was called Kedwick's Dam, and it kind of slowed down the river flow and created a lake behind it. And the people that live in the town use it for fishing, recreation, those sort of things. That was the goal. Well, in the midst of building the dam, there was a druidess who had come to them and asked them not to build the dam, that it would upset the balance of nature. And they, at the time, the town council and old man Kedwick says, well, we have to. I mean, our farms are drying up, our livestock's dying, a lot of our fruits and vegetables are withering. That's why we do it, because every 4 or 5 years is a drought.
Mhm.
So she says, well, there's a reason why there's a drought, and it's to balance things in nature. And she tried to work with them and explain, why it is the way it is. Well, they kind of went along with it for a while. She convinced enough of them to vote it to be put down. So they stopped building the dam for probably about 5 or 6 years. They left it alone, and they didn't have a drought. Well, one year they ended up having another drought, and the old man Kedwick, was pretty old at the time. He's starting to get old, and he said, we're building the dam. I don't care what she says. So they decided to vote on it, and when they did, that particular winter, they didn't know that Scree, who was the druidess, who was actually an Aarakocra, she had passed away, and she had died, unfortunately. So she wasn't there to influence the town to sway their opinion on completing the dam. So
Mhm.
the dwarves came back and helped them finish it up. They worked together, the dwarves and the humans. The dam was put into place. Everything was good for a couple years. And during that time, Kedwick's son had come of age, and he had decided that he didn't want anything to do with the town, and he didn't like the way his father had been carrying himself, so he decided he'd pick himself up and leave. So he ended up going into the forests, and he would help the loggers search the edge of the wildwood.
Mhm.
And he became kind of close to nature, and he basically became like a ranger, like a scout. And he helped the human loggers log the area without getting attacked by wild animals or without taking too much of the lumber like they had before. So he worked with him for about 5 or 6 years, and then he found out his father died. So he never returned back to the town, and the people in the town never really made the connection that that was his son. At one point, there was a time when it mattered that the kid had walked away because supposedly he went fishing and never came back. So the dam is basically causing a lot of issues after this. So the dam actually lowered the river level quite a bit. The dam actually stopped the river from doing its natural um, existence, which is to create a barrier. And the barrier is a barrier between these two sides of the forest. One side of the forest, you have this ant kingdom, and on the other side, you have this bee kingdom. Um, this tree was fairly recent. It was a giant life tree that had fallen over, and it is a little exaggerated in its size, but it created a natural bridge across the two, across this. It's like almost like a cliff. It's probably almost 100 feet down, and it's one of the only natural crossings other than swimming in the river. So that with the slowdown of the river created this point where the ants and the bees would interact more. Normally, the bees would only patrol their side of the river, but once the ants started crossing over the bridge and they started using the water more, the bees got upset about that, so they started attacking the foraging ants. So they created a civil war, all because of the river being messed with. Also, there was a lot of tension with the loggers. The bees started attacking the loggers. The ants started attacking the traders along this tradeway, which is this road down here. And it just became a really hostile place to live. After a time, when all of the hostilities started, the town was being attacked by the ants and the bees on the outskirts of the town. And as a matter of fact, they took some of the people. The ants and the bees took some of the people captive. So it just became this really not a safe or quaint place to live at the time. So that's what started this whole mess. So when you get the summons to come into the town, whether the GM has you get a post-it note, or you get a message from a messenger, or you're called from another kingdom, or wherever, you're going to end up in the town of Upriver, and that's the name of the town. It's no longer Kedwick's Crossing. The ranger during this time had been scouting the area, and he had found out that the tree had fallen across the river, and this was about a year or two before the adventurers arrived. And when he crossed the river, he was ambushed by a spider, mother of spiders. She's not Lolth or anything like that, but she kind of has that persona. Um,
More of a Shelob?
yeah, yeah, more of a Sheila. Yeah, exactly. She, I mean, she is a spider. They are the spider folk. She had a nest a long time ago, or a couple years prior, before she moved to this log, and it was further down the river, and it got washed away by a big storm. Well, the storm was the same storm that Scree had died. It was like a century storm, or storm of the century. It knocked down that large tree, and then after the thing settled down, the spider folk moved to that log, and they knew it would be a perfect place because it high traffic area. So they set up their new nest inside this log, and anything that crossed would have to deal with them. So they had a really strategic, ideal place.
I imagine they get a lot of ant workers that way.
Yeah, they get both. I mean, and there's animals too and stuff, that like rats and mice and stuff that cross. So the
Don't the bees just fly over?
they do, but they forage along the river. So when the spider folk moved closer, they actually were able to capture some of them. Not as many as the ants, but they do tangle with them occasionally. And
Okay.
also the spiders have in nearby this area, they have nets And when the bees fly by, they get caught in their nets, which are basically big spider webs. So the spiders will string nets or spider webs between the trees. So when the bees fly down low, they get caught in their nets. And the only
It's just
time,
got to be terrifying.
yeah, the only time they really go down there is to forage along the river, and they usually grab moisture and mud and building materials for their nest. But also they like the bark off the tree too.
I imagine.
So that's basically what started this hostility is the river being lowered, and then that tree that fell over um, became a real big point of contention. And the party members have to basically figure out why and where the missing people went. And once they investigate, it starts to bring them closer to the conflict in the forest, which is called the Wildwood. The ranger, when he went to investigate prior to the adventurers coming, he met the queen mother of the spider folk, and she had seduced him and tricked him, and she ended up basically killing him. And when the party members take up the quest, they end up following rumors and sightings and whatever information they get from the town to the logging camp. Well, when they get to the logging camp, they find either a journal or some sort of record of the ranger leaving to go investigate this fallen tree and the hostilities in the forest. So that gives them a clue that something's going on in the woods. So if they're curious about it, they'll follow his journal to a point, and they'll get over to the tree and realize that there's really nothing happening there. And then when they cross the bridge, they realize that the bridge is a large territory.
Laerun got a question. Not me, but DM David Keith wants to know. He says, I have missed it. Are these giant spiders or something else?
Pretty much.
Are they humanoids?
They're both. The spider folk actually can change, the females can. The males stay in spider form, but the females have a special ability where they can actually polymorph into a human form. And that's left over from their all of the magic in the forest is left over fey magic.
Lichen spiders.
Yeah,
Gross.
basically they're kind of like a lichen, the shape changers, but they can't change back and forth at will. They can only change once, either to or from their form they're in. So once per day, they can change back to their regular form, or they can change. If they're in their regular form, they have to wait a whole day to go back to their humanoid form. So their shape changing is limited. It's basically, at sunrise they can change their form.
Question from
Hmm.
me this time.
Hmm.
Aren't all the like the spiders, the ants, and the bees, aren't they all large size, and wasn't it like mutated or something like that to get them
Yes,
to be big?
yes. So they all have a humanoid kind of a background. At one time, they may have been humans or some sort of elves or something, but
Gross.
the forest had made them corrupted, and this happened over thousands of years. This isn't like something that just happened. The forest also has overgrown sections where there's trees that don't belong. They're just huge. They're like redwoods amongst oaks. So it's kind of a strange forest. It's has overgrown mushroom forests. There's areas where there's moss that kind of rules the day. There's some little clearings that look safe but are actually man-eating vines and all kinds of stuff. So the forest is not safe.
30-foot tall wild boar and the sort.
Yeah, pretty big stuff. So I do have some tokens that were made for this particular adventure. So here are the preliminary ones that I have. I'm still waiting for the spider ones, but these are the main tokens for the adventure itself. And you have different varieties and different forms. But I don't have the spider people yet. So the one that looks like a spider is actually the queen ant.
Okay.
But they have 3 bees and 3 different ant folks plus the queen of the ants. Spidera will have one form, then she'll have her anthropomorphic form, and then there'll be just a regular spider for the males.
Okay.
But the females are the only ones that can transform. The males cannot. They don't have that ability.
Yeah, fair enough.
And the females are kind of Fae-like. They have some special abilities like innate spells. They're not really spellcasters per se, but they have abilities that mimic like druidic and clerical spells. Not so much wizardry, but more or less their own little array of spells for whatever race they are.
That should be fun to pick out.
Yeah. So it's only the females again that have that ability.
So
So
it's a matriarchal society like the Drow.
correct. All 3 of those nations or representations of these bug people are basically matriarchal.
So a matriarchal spider themed used to be elf people that aren't the Drow.
Correct. I wouldn't say it's not borrowed, but I mean, they don't necessarily have to be elves. They could have been any race.
Oh, sure.
But I think that makes the most sense. But, the bee people could have been humans. The ants could have been dwarves. So it's hard to
Is a
say.
bit.
It's hard to say
Dwarf
who they.
ant makes a whole lot of sense.
Dwarf ants.
Yeah.
Dwarf ants do make sense because they
Yep.
live underground.
Mm-hmm.
Except for that queen doesn't have a beard as I see it, so I don't know.
Yeah, and also in this world, there's not a ton of races like that. You got some dwarves, some humans. You might find a halfling. Elves are actually pretty rare too. They're not uncommon, but you might find a half elf or something. But there's not a whole bunch of the traditional races. They exist. You're just not a whole bunch of them in the area. Most of the NPCs and the characters are humans. So
Oh,
that's
sure.
so the amount of sub races is not as high in this adventure.
Well, that makes as much sense as anything.
And
We've already got 3 new races of troublemakers here.
I did think about making player class races for the anthropomorphic forms, but that would mean that they'd have to be female and they would be kind of confined or very limited on what they could actually do within the parameters of the adventure. But if
Yeah,
I
it'd be
made it
hard
a
to retreat back to town with that.
yeah, yeah. And not to mention that, if it went sandbox totally, it would make more sense. But if it was just to run the adventure, I don't know if it's worth the effort or not to make those that way.
I think it would
Pre-gens
be
are a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
I think it would be very difficult to find players who wanted to play them and would play them similar to the way the culture goes because it's such an alien culture.
Right. So that brings us up to the adventure start. So that's the history as to why things are the way they are. So the spider folks are basically guarding the bridge, and they have their home there. The
Mhm.
ant folk have their part of the forest, and the bee folk have their half of the forest. In
And the
between all
river
that, huh?
and the river is down low enough that they can cross it.
Yep, exactly. Or they can use the bridge. If they use the bridge, they risk being attacked by the spider folk. During the day, the bridge is a little bit easier to cross, but
Mhm.
once the night falls and it gets dark out, that's when you really have to be careful. Usually
So spiders are nocturnal.
they do more at night. I wouldn't say they're completely nocturnal, but they usually hide in the shade, and they don't normally come right out in daylight. They usually like being in the shade. So
Sounds like the spiders are bad dudes.
yeah, they're not very friendly. So that brings us to the back to the town where the adventure starts. So the premise
Uh-huh.
is basically you have this history. The characters learn of this history as they go through the quest. The
Yeah. With the dam's about 20 years old at this point, right?
Yeah,
Somewhere
about
between
there.
10 and 20 years.
Yeah,
Okay.
that sounds about right. And it's really caused a big riff in the Wildwood. And the protectors, the druid and the Arakaka druidess and the ranger are no longer there to help keep the balance and the communication going between civilization and nature.
Was
She's
she
been
the
gone for
only
about 20.
Aarakocra there? Because maybe when
Yeah,
she died, that's why there's no more Aarakocra. Because yeah,
yeah, that could very well be true. I think that's a good assessment. She kind of looks like a crow, and she lives in a little grove up here on this side of the river, right up in here by the there's this little patch of woods here. This patch of woods over here is an orchard that is tended by the town.
Okay.
This part of the woods is kind of a sacred area. I guess they don't go in there for some reason. So I kind of made that a kind of a hands-off area. I haven't decided what I want to do with it yet.
so it could be like a druid circle or something in there.
Yeah, something sacred, or maybe there's an old tower of ruins there. I don't know yet.
Might be the graveyard. The town crypt is
Oh
woods.
yeah, yep. But the town itself, all the buildings are going to be, or most of the buildings are going to be somewhat detailed. I am going to make a store. There's going to be a supply house. You will have quest givers that give you minor quests, just little jobs. And then you have an opportunity to meet the dwarves, at least a representative of the dwarves. There's an opportunity to go fishing.
Hmm.
There's places you have to go in town or on the edges of town to make your discoveries and your investigations on the people who are missing. So there are three main missing people in this adventure. One is a little boy. He was walking along the dam, down on the lower part of the dam, quite a ways from home, with his dog, and he was abducted or captured by one of the bees. The bees picked him up and took him away. The dog went back to the town reluctantly and was whimpering and yelping all the way back home. And so the parents of that young boy, the way they described the dog was that he felt like he was guilty. Like the dog went back sad and kind of guilty. Is
Huh.
the I mean, they don't people think they can read the dog's emotions, but that's how they looked at it.
Got another question here from
Mhm.
DM David Keith.
Mhm.
He wants to know, do the spiders in human form have all the traits of humans, like they can come out during the day?
For the most part, yes. I can say that they are not. I wouldn't say that they would favor that, but they could. None of them have a trait that's. I mean, they might have sunlight sensitivity, but for the most part, when they are in human form, they pretty much look like humans, except for they'll have a few aberrant things like maybe some mandibles or an extra set of eyeballs. But for the most part, I mean, they're all set to charm and kind of allure you so that you're not too afraid of them. That's one of the bad things about these fey creatures is they have this charm about them, and they all have it, and it's kind of like an aura. And if you are a member of the opposite sex, or perhaps you are somebody that is curious about the animal life in the forest, that might be something you would be interested in, and you would think you're talking to some sentient being when really they're just thinking about their next meal. So it's just a matter of the players being naive as to the power of the Fey forest.
I'm sorry. If I see somebody with mandibles, I am not going near them.
I know, but you got to remember they kind of have all of them kind of have like a charm, and that's what had happened to the Rangers. He's never seen anything like her, and he was totally charmed. It wasn't necessarily sexual; it was just completely in awe of this creature. And when she talked to him, she's very seductive, and she led him into the log place and invited him for dinner, and didn't realize that he was the dinner. So that's one of those. I guess there's other stories and movies that have featured that sort of thing, but that is basically what happened to the Ranger.
Yeah, but
Question.
four-eyed girls being seductresses? That's kind of bizarre.
I have a question. Okay. When you have your characters make their thing, because there's not going to be pre-gen, so people will need to make their characters. Are you going to allow multiple races, or is everybody going to have to be human, or have you even thought that through?
Well, I thought about doing pre-gens, but it's kind of a pain in the butt. So what I might do is just suggest. I'm not going to say don't have any of these, but I really don't see Dragonborn and tieflings and those sort of things,
Maybe you need
or
to have your
robots,
own
or
book of oh no, then you have to make classes and races.
yeah,
No, you
not
could have your own book of races, and
yeah,
then you could
sort of.
say people have to pick from the races that are in that book.
Yeah, if they use the standard fantasy races, it should be fine. Whatever that is, but
Humans, elves, dwarves, halflings.
yeah, humans, elves, dwarves,
Gnomes.
halflings, maybe
Nobody
gnomes.
likes gnomes.
Yeah. I don't see the other advanced races being in there, like the tieflings and the
Turtle folk.
Azamar and all that. Yeah, it doesn't really fit the theme too well. I mean, you could do it. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, you can't stop them.
Well, we want it to be cross where it can work in multiple uh,
Right,
rule sets. So you don't want to have any specific D&D type of things. So
right.
you want to pick races and stuff that are
More common.
comparable to a
Yes, exactly.
Oh
multiple rule
gosh.
sets.
I wouldn't worry as far as Pathfinder's concerned. We get all sorts of weird races. Pathfinder 2 still catching up, but we'll cover them up before too long, I'm certain. Paizo loves putting out new races.
So I have a DM's map that and I have some plot points here that would kind of make to where these areas have to be developed and
Mhm.
detailed. And I'm gonna have
Okay.
another roster of all the NPCs that you can potentially meet, including
Well, that'll be a fun list.
the major ones. So there'll be like I'm gonna use I'm gonna have like a commoner, but there's gonna be like 4 types of commoners, and then you'll have a couple key NPCs like the town mayor and the that sort of thing. So the commoners are just going to be like storekeepers. Some of them are just going to be farmers. Some of them are going to be, craftsmen, and the other ones might be fishermen or people that take care of the orchards or, lumberjacks, basically.
Yeah, but we don't have to really worry about specialized equipment. Level
Nah.
3 to 5, we're probably talking mundane equipment anyway.
Yeah, it's not a whole lot of magical equipment going on. Although the ranger did have a magic bow. So
Fun.
if they go into that spider's nest, they might find the bow there, because I think he left it there along with his corpse, of course.
Hmm.
So there is probably 1+1 bow or something in there, but other than that, there's not a whole lot of magical treasure. Maybe a potion or two.
Oh yeah, I assume that the bees make something magical of some sort.
Yeah, that's a good question or a good point. I thought of each the spiders not so much, but the ant people and the bee people probably make these globules that are probably not the greatest smelling or tasting, but they do.
Honey is fantastic. It should taste delicious.
Yeah, if it doesn't have any, what is it that they put in there? Not the pollen, but the natural sweetness that comes from the plants that they're harvesting from.
Nectar.
Yeah, some nectar. It won't taste that great. Tastes like wax. But yeah, so there's some things there I might throw in there to kind of make it more unique. Instead of just a regular potion of healing, you can harvest something from each layer to help you a little bit.
I
Um,
assume the spiders are primarily bad guys. Are the bees and the ants intended to be like full societies? Is this social interaction a reasonable option?
yes. So when you finally make it past the rangers camp and you start exploring the forest, the first big encounter is you are attacked by a patrol of wasps, and you basically try to get to the bridge and cross it. And this is during the day, by the way. So most of the spider folks are out, or they're hiding, or whatever, wherever they're at. And there's
Sure.
enough bees and ants around where they won't attack outright. So the characters go across the log, and they realize that this must have been the log that the ranger was talking about. And when they make it across, the bees chase them down the log. And when they get across the other side, the ant people show up and rescue them, basically help them from the attacking bee patrol. So in that group is the first main NPC, or the main heroine of the module, and her name is Antila. And Antila is a female princess that hasn't turned quite into royalty just yet. She still has her wings. And I guess you could say she's like an older teenager, like just about to be an adult, or just
So
about ready to be
all of
on
the
her own.
trouble.
Yeah, all kinds of trouble. So Antila is a spoiled, curious, feisty, inquisitive type of girl that wants to rebel. She doesn't want to be like her mother, this big egg laying queen. She wants to be like the adventurers. So when she meets them, she leads them back to her home. And basically, she says, either you come back with me, or basically, you're going to die, or we will attack you.
Well,
So,
that's a good way to get started.
yeah. So the party members have to make a decision. Do you want to fight 12 ants, or do you want to go back to talk to their queen?
Murder hobo.
We
Yeah.
all know what the answer to that is every single time.
Fight!
There's only 12 of them. There's 4 of us. You got them right.
But it makes the odds kind of excruciating. And the
Oh,
what
yeah.
and I'm going to scale it to where, depending on the number of party members, that's how many ants there's going to be.
Well, can
It's
the
a fight.
male ants talk as well?
Yes, they can actually. Um,
Fantastic.
they only talk when spoken to. They don't normally talk a humanoid voice, and their speech isn't as good as the females because they don't do that as often.
Sounds like you need to make some new languages. Bee
They got the
speak,
Arnold
ant speak.
Schwarzenegger thing going on.
Oh no!
Get
Ah!
back to the chopper. But that's about, they're really vague, and they don't really carry on full on conversations.
That's okay. We can still, get some information out of them. They've got a few extra legs.
So the party is led to, after they have that encounter with the bees, they're led to the ant's nest, which I'm showing right now, and they meet with Antila and her minions, and they go back. They're escorted back to the nest, either as guests or prisoners, whatever way it happens. And once they get there, they are judged by the court, the Queen's Court. And one of the Queen's Court is Baldwin, and he is a male. He is a male ant folk who was supposed to be royalty, but he never, basically he never had the chance. So he just became like a guard. And he ends up he's Antila's best friend, kind of like a mentor, but he's also in love with her, if you know what I mean, like as a friend though, like they grew up together basically. And he's kind of in love with her, but he never tells her that. That's kind of goes without saying type thing.
Yeah, I assume she's already betrothed to at least one other aunt at this point.
Yeah, so he has his hopes up that he thinks that someday he'll be able to be with her or be by her side or whatever, but he
That would
ends up.
give him good reason to try and talk her into being an adventurer to get out of her current contracts.
Well, that's kind of what happens. So once the players reach the hive or the colony, they are taken into like a prison cell after they're judged. And the queen says, well, your people have harvested from the forest, so we are going to harvest from you. So she sentences them to a slow death in the brooding chambers where all the eggs and larvae are. And that's going to be where they basically feast on on the adventures. But the night before, they're actually they got one day basically to say their prayers and or half a day, whatever, to kind of
Hmm.
to relax. And in the middle of the time when the nest or the colony is slow, which is probably at night, she breaks them free out of the prison, and she becomes kind of like their savior. And she apologizes to them and says, "Come on, we're getting out of here." So they end up escaping. Along the way, that they Baldwin shows up and he says, "You're not going anywhere." And she's like, "We got to get out of here. These guys are they're going to be killed." And at this point, she's already made up her mind that she's in love with one of the characters. She has like a girl crush on one of the characters. And Baldwin's,
Just one? Ah,
oh, probably a couple of them. But Baldwin senses that, and he's a little bit jealous, but he begrudgingly goes along with the party because he wants to be with her. He doesn't care what it takes. And he warns her, "Hey, we shouldn't do this. This is dangerous. This is not a good idea." So they end up escaping out of this old tunnel that was created when the mound was before it was what it is now. And they
hmm.
escape out this escape tunnel, and the ants catch wind of some kind of intrusion or that the players have fled. So they chase them, or you can hear them chasing them, and the tunnel collapses behind them. A boring beetle comes through there and gives them a close call, where
Oh, that's not good.
they think they're gonna have to fight this boring creature. I haven't decided. It's a beetle of some sort. The beetle drops down in the tunnel, and all this debris falls down, and they either have to fight the beetle or go out the way they intended. And the beetle ends up collapsing the tunnel so that the ants can't get to them.
That's awful convenient.
Yeah, you got to give the players a little scare. Give them a little run for their money.
You mean they weren't scared when they were going to be eaten up by the ants?
Yeah, I don't know.
Ah,
So Baldwin the Bold is her best friend and kind of like her bodyguard.
and
And
sounds like the guy who's going to betray the whole party.
well, you would think, because he's jealous and he's really rude to the party members, and
Mm.
he's always sticking up for her. He doesn't want anything to happen to her. So this token here,
I would like to see it have two endings. You could either have him deceive the party or you can have him help the party. And that would make it interesting because then it would be replayable and could be, it would be different ways of seeing things.
but this is Baldwin the Bold here. This is his token.
Okay, fair enough.
Antila is this female-looking one, and they kind of are like a duo, and then the party members go with them to flee. Once they leave the forest, she starts opening her mouth about the fight between the bees and the ants, and how the spider folk have been harassing, the. Well, I don't think she says anything about the spider folk, but she actually just talks about, the aggression and fighting and the Civil War and how the river's gone down. And so the adventurers will start figuring out, okay, this is something that's probably has to do with the river. They might make that assumption. They finally make it to the bridge, and the queen or the princess Antila offers to take them to the hive because they want to investigate, the towns members that had been taken. That's the main reason they started in the adventure. So
Okay.
the townsfolk, most of them were taken by the bees. The
Are there witnesses among the humans who saw the bees
Yes,
take people? Okay.
yes, yeah. That's when you do
Excellent.
your investigation in town. They tell them that they saw these large insects with wings drop down and pick them up, and they look like large bees. And then
Well, I
the
mean, we're talking to a large insect with wings right now as well, right?
exactly, exactly. The other thing is along the road where the traders were being abducted, uh, they were being taken to the nest and eaten. So they weren't even kept alive long enough to really be witness. But anyone who escaped the caravans could say that they were attacked along the road and some of their loved ones are missing, or some of the people in the caravans are missing
By ant people.
by the ant people. Yep. So basically, Antila agrees to take them to the wasp nest. She knows where it is. She's never been there, but she knows basically where it is. So they end up having to cross the bridge. Well, this time when they cross, it happens to be nightfall. And as they get closer and closer to the bridge, they start seeing more and more carcasses of different animals and insects that were caught up in the webs and that were feasted on. And they get to the bridge and they have a confrontation with the spider folk. And the queen comes out and she accuses them of trespassing and that they haven't paid the toll and all this other stuff, like a troll, basically. And that they are welcome to stay for dinner, but they cannot leave until sunrise. And they're like, no, 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 we're not staying with you. So she gets offended and she sicks her army on them. And there's a chase over the log or through the log, depending on what happens along the way. But if they end up going inside the log, it's like a small dungeon crawl, and that's where they find the actual body of the ranger and his +1 bow.
Okay.
And then also the brood, they find the eggs that the queen has inside the log.
So it doesn't sound like either of these are particularly easy to gain relations with either the bee or the ant faction.
No,
You could get relations with some of the exterior members of those factions, but
right.
they're not going to be friends.
Nah. So then you spend the rest of your journey running from spiders, thinking they're going to be chasing you. And finally, you get into the thick of the forest and you start noticing how alien and how fey like the forest really is. And as you get to this clearing, they end up being spotted, or at least they see a bee patrol of like 5 bees flying around, and they're trying to avoid being seen, and they're using the cover of the forest, but they have to cut through this clearing. And in the clearing, on the edge of the clearing, is this caterpillar who is kind of like the one in Alice in Wonderland, I guess. But he's not smoking a hookah. He's actually underneath these leaves, and he's hung up in his chrysalis or whatever that is at the cocoon they're making. And
Hmm.
he talks to them. And first, he's the one that gets their attention. He says, "Come over here, hide over here." And they don't know who it is at first, but then they look up and they see him underneath these leaves, and it provides them shelter so that they don't get spotted by the patrol unless they do something stupid, which they probably will.
Hmm.
But nonetheless, he warns them about the patrols becoming greater and a lot more frequent. He talks to them about, the comings and the goings of the bees. he even mentions that he saw the bees bring some people to the nest. He said, well, he didn't see him take them to the nest, but the direction of the nest. So he had
Okay.
witnessed that he indeed saw some, that they've been bringing captives. And then he also said that, he fears for his life and that he's at a critical, vulnerable moment and he can't really do anything to help the party members. But he does tell Antila that, everyone has to go because she has a meltdown at this point. She begins to cry and she feels like giving up and she's like, I don't want to be like my mother. And she does her big meltdown. And he finally talks her out of it. And he says, look, we all have to change. Everyone has to go through that. There's nothing you can do about it. You can't stay who you are. You can't go back. So he gives her that lesson, that everyone has to face that in life. So that's
Oh, sure.
that's kind of what, the lesson of that part. And it's more of a role playing thing. And also kind of like a word of caution. So they finally make it to the ants or the bee's nest area. And either they get captured or they sneak in, one way or the other. They're going to end up inside the nest. They end up talking to the queen eventually after combat or after, becoming prisoners,
Sneaking in, yeah.
whatever.
Sure.
So they negotiate with her, and the queen is surprised that Antila's with them. So the two of them kind of square off politically, and they have this debate about why they're fighting and all this good crap. And hopefully the characters will cue in at some point, or somebody will, and let them know that, hey, this is a bigger problem. This isn't just about you. This is affecting everybody. That sort of thing. And eventually they come to their senses and they decide that, hey, maybe we should try to work this out. And the characters can mention that if they were able to take some of the captives home, that they might be able to convince the town to lower the dam. So the queen accepts that, but Attila has to stay, and one of the humans. There's three captives. The
Uh-huh.
the adults stay. The boy is released. So the bees fly him to the edge of the forest, and he runs home, and he's reunited with his dog and the players. So the
Okay.
players get to escort the boy back home, explain what's going on, tell him about the politics of the forest. The townspeople make a quick decision to lower the dam. Once that happens, they are to return to the queen. So they meet the bees again at the end of the forest, and they're taken back to the hive, and they negotiate the rest of the releases of everyone else.
Shoot, I think I might be more mercantile than that. We got to send water carts over to the bees.
Yeah. So the basically it's a big political thing at this point, and you got captures people, and you got prisoners of war, and you have
Water rights.
water rights. Yeah. So basically the thing about it is that Antila starts to realize she's growing up along this journey. She's actually the main character without actually being the main character. She's realizing that she can't remain who she is and that she has to kind of toughen up. So she does a pretty impressive job negotiating with the queen, and she ensures the queen that once everything's back to where it was, that she would make a peace with her, and that she would go back and talk to her mother and reason with her and try to get her to to stand down. And so the queen's pretty impressed with the young queen to be. So during that time, the the patrols that are out and about, the bee patrol, they
Hmm.
they let the party and the queen know that the spider folks are on the move. And along the way, they have to hurry up and leave that area. And I forgot to mention that Baldwin the Bold is supposed to die at the bridge where the spiders are.
Aw.
So rewind.
Okay.
Baldwin sacrifices himself so that the party can get across the bridge.
Okay.
So anyways, so the Baldwin is no longer in the picture. So
Well,
the
that could definitely be understandable why Antilla's having such a fit.
that's part of her meltdown. So she
Yeah.
feels kind of guilty and stupid and yeah, and mad and angry and feisty. So anyhow, she realizes that they all kind of get worried. Why are the spider folks on the move? Because normally they stay in that area. They don't normally go too far out.
Hmm.
So they fly towards the ant kingdom or towards the log bridge to see what's going on, and they bump into the old caterpillar guy, who is no longer a caterpillar, now he's a moth. So he helps guide them to where he saw the bee folk last and where he saw the spiders. So they end up flying and they realize that the spiders are all the way on the other side of the river and going the wrong direction. And Tila says, "Well, I thought they were coming this way." And the bee patrol guy says, "No, we never said that. We just said they're on the move. We didn't say they're attacking us. They're going a different direction. They're heading to your place." She's like, "Crap, we got to get home." So they
Time
race.
to ride Mothra.
Yeah, so they hurry back towards the ant colony. When they get there, the ant colony is pretty much decimated. There's carcasses of ants and spiders all over the place. Apparently, the spider mother assumed that they were doing reconnaissance and that they were going to attack. When they saw Antila and Baldwin the Bold, the
Hmm.
spider mother got paranoid and decided that she was going to send her own little army out to take care of the ants once and for all. So she sends her little army of spiders out to attack the ants, thinking that they were making plans to take over the bridge.
There, they probably ought.
Yeah.
They do keep losing people there.
So that's the gist of the story. The players help liberate what's left of the colony. Antila loses her wings. She becomes the queen. She finds out that her mother died during the battle,
Well, that's always fun.
and she just becomes like the new hero, I guess, and a respected leader. She brings peace and prosperity to the forest, and the adventurers were kind of like the conduit that brings her to that point. And once that's done, then they're led back to the city to be heroes themselves because they have the rest of the captives with them.
So I assume that primary goals of the adventurers is to set a good example for the ant queen, so she stops stealing market folk,
Yeah,
and oh gosh, probably to make a deal with the ant folk to convince them to stop eating humans in general.
yeah,
The bee folk are a whole lot more open in how the party deals with them.
yeah. So the whole thing is that you have a little bit of love, you have, kind of like a coming of age story. You have the little boy who's reunited with his dog. You have the lore of the forest. You have
And
excitement,
everyone still hates spiders.
and everyone still hates spiders. That's right. So you kind of have this, this large amount of things tackled in one adventure. Usually in adventures, you only have one or two of those elements. One of my goals was to have at least three of them. So you have politics, love, hate, prejudice. It kind of goes through all that stuff through the story.
Dam is closed at the moment.
Yep.
Hopefully, the adventure convinces the players to convince town to open the dam.
Yeah, that's one of the conditions. So
So
when
are we gonna build something?
yeah, we can build whatever. I just wanted to now that we have the premise of the story. So probably the starting point would be a good place to start. I have a DM map that's already kind of linked with some of the work.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. So this is just a black and white, and I have all the pins on here.
Oh, awesome.
So eventually I will have this on the color map, but these pins are basically all these different locations. So I
Mm-hmm.
have to sit here and make all these different locations, and then also detail them and also make up the NPCs. So I wanted to know like which aspect of this should we work on, because we got the story kind of, the outline. We know what, I have a rough idea of what type of creatures we have. We know the setting somewhat. It's like a fey forest wilderness type thing. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it could be a hex crawler or a sandbox type thing, but there is a story to drive it through. We also have to create the NPC races for the, I guess, two different forms for the ant folk and the bee people.
Probably 3 forms for each.
Yep. So that might be a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah, because you probably got the soldiers, the workers, and the queens, as it were.
Yeah, pretty much. So there's that. And then I think what we want to do is have somebody or anyone, if you guys want to put in any input as to where should we start. I mean, we have the story basically. We have the locations. The beginning of the story is going to be at this crossroads,
Mm-hmm.
and basically when you start here, you'll see the sign, and you'll see a passing what do you call it, caravan. So there'll be a chance for them to trade if they need to, and the town or the caravan will probably tell them, "Hey, no, we're not going there. We're not heading that way. Too much problems there today." Something like
Man,
that.
that whole blasted town is cursed.
And we just got attacked by some giant ants back earlier on the road. So he's talking about the caravan would be back here along the tradeway. And then there's the giant ant sightings. So that's along here. Out in
Mm-hmm.
these rolling hills, this prairie, that is basically just open hex crawl. And what lives out there are these grasshopper things and ank eggs.
Are they big too?
The ank eggs are, the grasshopper folk are small, fairy, pixie-like things, but they're annoying.
Well, it sounds like you've got lots of uses for poison in this world.
Oh yeah.
So we definitely have different strengths of poison that are available on all sides. That'll be fun.
We have the abandoned camp, which would probably be, like a miner, or not a miners, but lumber camp slash like a log cabin type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have the lake, the goddamn dam itself. And then we have the missing child. This is where the boy was when he came up missing.
Mm-hmm. And
We
he's
have,
the latest one to fall out, is he?
yeah, and then there's the missing orchard person was here. And then this was the Dragonway Plains is just another hex crawl area, but this is where the dragon used to forage. He'd fly back and forth over here,
Okay.
and that's also the site where the dwarves defeated him. It was in these hills over here. They took him, so they still have his head mounted in their halls.
I imagine most of that area used to be forest before.
Probably
So you said 3 people were missing. It's the boy, the person that from the
the orchard.
corner of the orchard, and who's the third person?
Guy on the lake. He was fishing in a boat.
Why don't we work on those 3 encounters?
Okay.
and find some, you know,
Okay.
NPCs to go with it and stuff.
Okay.
Chat, want to help us with this, please?
So what I was thinking is taking a commoner and kind of customizing that. So making a copy of the commoner NPC.
Nice. So mostly, I think the only thing they need is a name, right? They aren't terribly combat focused. If they get into combat, they're going to die.
Yeah.
1 hit point.
Yeah, really. So I don't have my own bestiary yet, so I think it would behoove me to start that. I already know what creatures I want, but or at least some.
Kazman wants to know, where are the murder hornets located?
North. The north part of the
Northeast.
forest is the murder hornets.
Yeah. They're up here in the upper area. The humming hives.
Don't worry, we've got your memes covered.
Yeah. Um, their tokens are right here. So we need some commoners. So NPCs, and I'm going to make a different group up here because that's what you want to do when you start making your own content. So
Let's
all
start with
these,
the boy first, and let's give
okay.
him a description and a name.
Yeah, he needs a little bit more than just the commoner
Do you
title.
usually split them into two groups or just one? Because I usually do an NPC group and then the beast group for random encountery stuff.
I could do either or. Depends on how many I make. So
Let's see. I would guess, given the size of this, you'll probably have about 50 NPCs.
yeah. So I'll just edit the group and make two groups.
Anyone want to give the boy a name?
So he's about like 10 or so.
And he's not going to be Timmy, and he's not going down the well.
Of course, he's not going down the well. He's being flown away by bees, murder hornets, and whatnot.
Hello, Chad. Are you awake?
Of course
So
not.
the commoner, I'm just going to drag the copy of it into the NPCs area. And this is just a basic commoner right now. No name, no nothing. I'll probably make a few copies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so well, right now, I guess we'll just call him Little Boy.
Aw, he's Georgie Baxley.
Georgie?
Georgie. Georgie sounds like the sort of kid who gets kidnapped and taken off onto a random adventure and traumatized for the rest of his natural life.
So little boy can be your the one that the people see, and then you make the with his actual name would be your
Oh yeah, that's a good
unshown
idea.
area. Where's Waldo? Smackdown 282 6 no 82 says.
So what Lady Shel suggested is non-ID name will be Little Boy, or I should say Young Boy. His name's Georgie, and when you put this little ID tag on here, that's it. That's basically, and then I could change the stats a little bit. So any alignment, I want to change that to what? Neutral good, probably. They
What do
don't
you
have
mean?
chaotic.
Chaotic good.
Yeah,
He
there you
was
go.
like go leaving town, being where he wasn't supposed to be.
Well, I mean, everybody in this town doesn't want to be what their parents were. They're very anti-tradition. Everyone's chaotic.
We have some other names too for when you do the lumberjack and the I guess the guy that's fishing.
Hmm.
So we've got Griffin or Zale for the lumberjack and Andre. I'm guess well I don't know. Kaz, who'd you mean Andre for? could be Andre the Small. Okay, no one's seen Princess Bride?
Okay, so who's the non-ID? The fisherman?
Andre could be the fisherman, I guess.
Do we have last names in this tune?
No, why?
Just the Kedwicks.
It's Andre. Oh, you can pick it. Weird spelling, sure. Andre.
Andre.
Is he from the East Coast? Andre.
Nope, he's not from the East
French.
Coast. Andre is a little bit tougher than 4 hit points. He's got a whole 5.
So.
This is the
Mine is
fishing
just a
guy, right?
fisherman.
Yes.
Yeah, fish occasionally bite for D4.
Boy, you're lucky, Andre, that you got captured by the bees. You could have been fish bait.
So I'm adjusting their stats somewhat accordingly. So they're not going to have any armor. They do have an alignment. They are human.
I assume Georgie is small.
Probably, yeah. So and I'll change his movement to 25 feet. He's got a 7 strength. Might make his dex like about 12 though. Andre though has the a 12 strength.
He's no lumberjack, that's for sure.
Yeah, he's fisherman. Let's see, Andre, intelligence is probably 9. Wisdom probably just stays where it is. Charisma stays where it is. So just a little bit of variation in there, nothing major.
But we're probably done on A's because we already have Andre and Antilla.
Yeah. So melee attack weapon, 1d4. Perfect. So that's like an improvised weapon or something basic. Like if he picks up a stick.
Maybe he hits you with his fishing rod.
Yeah. I'm going to give him a trait or a skill. I give him survival +1. That's for his fishing.
He sounds like he'd be more better than +1.
Is this guy gonna have like a smell of fish on him? Like every time he walks by, you smell the fish. You know he's the fisherman.
And he's not really saltwater, so I don't think so.
You could still stink like fish if you were freshwater.
Yeah, but it doesn't stink as bad as salmon
true.
and such. It's
Yeah,
not
he's
as
not out
oily.
for weeks at a time either.
He washes his hands in the lake.
Well, good thing he washes his hands.
Yeah. So Georgie, should I give him stealth like +1?
His stealth didn't help him get away from the bees.
Maybe deception +1. He's a good little liar. So I gave the Andre guy a +2 survival and a +1 nature.
Ah, fair enough. He sounds like a right reasonable person. He could almost do as well as the party in that aspect.
Yeah.
I forget how low those bonuses are in 5th.
Yeah, they're pretty minuscule. So Georgie, I might do more with him since, yeah, he ain't going to be doing this much damage.
T-Cats has a suggestion for Andre. Special damage with fishing rod. Take someone's eye out.
That's a special attack.
I like it.
Unfortunately, he's in a part of the world where that is ineffective because everybody already has 6 eyes at least.
That's true.
So on the back is
And
where
mandibles.
is where I'm going to spend a little bit more time on the ones that have names. So Georgie should have some sort of dialogue that comes up when he's rescued from the bees. And I'm pretty sure it's going to have something to do with his dog.
We need a name for the dog too.
Mm-hmm.
You need to make an NPC for the dog. What
Yep.
should the dog's name be, chat?
Dog.
I like that.
Spots. You could be like one of those.
Taz said, "Isn't that the Red Ryder BB gun?" About the take your eye out. DM David Keith says, "Call the dog TJ or Cap." T Cat says, "Archer."
I know what I'm going to call him. Keeper.
He's a keeper.
Mm-hmm. And you spell his name KPR.
I think that might be too woke for me.
What's that?
That might be too woke for me.
So maybe I will make his dog.
So short descriptions of a tiny little boy.
Yeah, just a short description and then have like some canned dialogue for him. Like, oh, I miss my dog. I can't wait to go home, or something that would maybe not that cheesy, but something like that. Looks like he hasn't bathed in a week. Greasy hair.
Man, it was fun flying, but then they just locked me in my room. It's all waxy in.
So I imagine he has what, dark hair or brown hair. Um, he just looks like he's between the ages of like 9 to 11. He he's saying he's hungry and he misses his dog, and he matches the description of the missing townsfolk, the kid.
The bees aren't feeding him?
Not so much. They might have given him some nectar, but he probably doesn't even know what to do with it.
Fair enough.
Depends on how long he's been captive. I'm sure he's eaten something, but probably not a
Yeah,
whole lot.
we got all that honey in the hive, right?
That's right.
What do the bees plan on doing with him?
Well, they're going to do the same thing that the ant folk, like feed
They're,
them. What they do is it takes longer because what the ants do is they just throw them in a cell.
mhm.
And once the players slow down, like they start starving and getting dehydrated, the the whatever the
Larvae.
larvae find them. But in the case of the bees, they have to what they do is they paralyze the victim. They put them in one of those shafts, and they make a special one for them, like so they can. It might be a little longer in depth, and then they drop them in there, and then they lay their eggs in there. So it takes a while for the queen to get around to them, and then they
Okay.
seal it. Then they seal it.
Are these people going to be in their terrifying pods when they're found?
One of them, well, yeah,
Oh boy.
yeah, that'll make for some fun, won't it?
Yeah, I wonder what the heck they were planning on doing with Georgie. That's not hardly even a meal. Maybe they're going to stuff him in with the fisherman because he was kind of skinny.
Yeah. So they put them in that chamber or whatever it is. And I made a little I have a battle map for this actually. So if each area has its own battle map. So let me see. Okay, so this one I have the beehive one, which is this. So if there's any skirmishes inside the hive, I can use this map.
I'm sure there will be.
And then each one of these pods is where potentially where the workers or the guards are, and then the PCs will be locked up here in somewhere. And this is just one layer. It's a cross section, so there's actually several of these. And the only way to get up and down is to either climb along the walls or fly. So there's that. And then I have the ant tunnel. Let's see, where is that? The ant tunnel is right here. So there's the ant tunnel. So that one of these, this area is going to be probably where they were captured, or maybe in here. So I still have to put the grid on there and such. Then I made this honeycomb. Well, I didn't make it, but I used this honeycomb if I want to make a more close-up battle.
I imagine that Jorgi is probably very sick and slightly poisoned when they pick him up.
Maybe, yeah, he could be a little bit out of it, dehydrated, skinny.
You know, when they finally get to him, you just tell them that he doesn't feel so good, vomits all over them. That's a great way to make an impression. Also, a fair bit of sympathy from most players.
And then once I get an idea of what I want him to say, I'll make a bubble here for a chat bubble.
Got a typo there. G's instead of
Yeah,
H's.
yep. So that is Georgie.
What kind of dog is he going to have?
I don't know. I mean, far as stat block goes, we can decide kind of from that. Let's see. Guess I can take a wolf and kind of tone it down. So I don't have a dog per se.
I thought there was a dog in the monster manual. Oh, you don't have monster manual open? That's right, SRD.
SRD, yeah.
And the dog's name was Keeper?
Yeah,
KPR?
yep.
And did we say what type of dog it is? Is it like it's not a
Probably like a
Chihuahua?
lab or something.
Really? You think it's gonna lab?
Something medium,
Maybe like a terrier or something. Some kind of terrier.
Well, it couldn't handle the bees when they came by. It
Yeah.
didn't even try to fight.
Probably didn't even have a chance. It just came down and swooped him up.
Yeah, I would expect it more of a ratty dog, like a terrier or something of that nature.
Okay.
Just because it didn't fight the bees.
So I
Because I
just
would
put
expect
terrier
a
dog.
Labrador to, be.
So I don't think he's going to have natural armor. Oh yeah,
No.
it's
And he would be
dexterity.
small as well.
Hey, T-Cats has a good idea here. Given logging activity, maybe a husky type for the hauling heavy loads.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Oh, sure.
Maybe it's a puppy, so that's why something was. Maybe it would, hasn't grown up yet, but it's gonna be a logging dog.
So he's small. And I reduced his AC down so it's an 11 instead of 13. Changed his hit points
Oh,
a bit.
hopefully we'll never use these stats.
Yeah. Yeah, that's usually the case too.
Yeah.
Perception is +2 for his scent. It still have the keen hearing and smell.
Mm-hmm.
Pack tactics?
I don't know if it would have
No.
tactics.
That's really not, doesn't make sense. It's not a wild dog. His bite
But he
isn't
does
going to be,
probably know a couple of tricks.
yeah. We can put that on the back.
Has the little what you call it around its neck. Oh no, that's not. That's the Saint Bernard. The one that rescues you.
I mean, I want to send my 9-year-old out with a small keg of liquor. It'll keep him warm.
He had some interesting parents.
So I changed his bite to 1d4 plus 1.
Fair.
It was 2d4 plus 2. I was like, I don't think so.
Is he a medium or a small dog?
Small.
Fair.
Does he still have 40 feet movement?
No, it's probably 35.
Eh. I don't know if it's worth slowing him down.
No, let's slow him down a little bit. 30 is your base, so.
Yeah. But he's a dog. If the players kick him, he needs to be able to run.
Mean players.
I assume as much. Because it's going to happen at least half the time.
So there's Keeper right there. I have to find him a better token, though. I don't want to use the wolf.
Fair.
Probably just a D for dog or something.
But actually, the husky looks a little like a wolf.
Yeah, I imagine.
Shoot, he's more of a face than a token.
Yeah.
Because nobody is going to hurt that puppy. That would be unconscionable.
Hey, look, a German Shepherd. Hey, aggressive dog. Happy dog. Here's a little blink dog. Here's a regular dog right here. Here's a hound.
That looks like the right dog.
Which one, the hound?
Yeah, the hound.
Yeah, I gotta remember though, if I do this, I'm gonna have to go back and fix it.
Why is
I
that?
found you a husky dog that's perfect. It came from Pixabay, so it's free.
Okay. Yeah, because if I do this commercially,
Ah,
I'll have
that
to go
isn't
back
part
and
of your list. Got it.
fix all that crap. So I think for now, I'm just gonna use a letter token,
Oh, absolutely.
because I'm not gonna deal with that.
Nah.
So that's a good word to the wise. If you decide you want to do anything commercially, be careful with the artwork that you use, because you'll have to go back and strip it all out, and that's no fun. Once you get to a certain point, you don't want to have to go back and do all that. And I know you can use these, so we were just gonna say either K. I'd probably K. It's probably used a lot less. Keeper dog. Okay. So there's keeper dog. So I think next week, Shel, if we come back, we won't have to go through that whole storyline again. So what we'll do is we'll focus more on these NPCs. I'll build a couple more before next week.
I'm working on getting you your your dog here. Hang
Okay.
on, it's coming.
I'll continue scripting. Terrible scripts.
I love this dog. This picture's perfect. I made it pretty square. I mean, it was more rectangle shape before. It might be a little taller than wide.
Yeah. What I'm gonna do is go to what do you call it?
Token stamp.
We still got about what 20 minutes or so.
It's pretty square. It's 443 by 449.
Hmm. But most of the tokens are round. Portraits are square.
Right, but I'm just saying you can make a circle out of something
Hmm.
that's it's
Yeah.
the dimensions are right.
Cool.
If you want to elicit sympathy, sick kids are a great way.
Yeah, that
Oh
definitely.
yeah.
Yes. So.
Are you
NP.
making the tokens so you're going to drag it in or
I'm doing two things at once. So.
okay, cuz I just told the chat wait till you see this token so
Yeah,
you
it's
better
awesome.
fix it.
I'll do it. So Georgie, I'm gonna have some dialogue here.
Description?
That's right.
Leave it to me to find a typo cuz I'm good at that.
But he was very agile. That was his description.
Oh, that's true. He was.
So here's the dialogue.
Watch how you make a character say words in your chat window with the person's name.
Can I go home now? I miss Keeper. So I right click on here, change paragraph type. We're going to change it to a chat frame. Then what I'm going to do is right click on it again, click paragraph types, and then assign the speaker. In this case, it's Georgie. Yorgi. So now when I click that, that's right, Yorgi.
And now you can put in the returns? Or is that not a possibility?
You can't do that.
Okay.
It won't let you anyways.
Ah.
Best will be one thing.
Yeah, if you have more than one thing, you have to yeah, it'll be a separate bubble. DM David Keith says, "What's the DC for players to put two and two together and match the missing townsfolk to Georgie?"
It wouldn't be very hard because they got a description. So I would say
I'm
if they
guessing. Oh, wait a minute. I was gonna say they'd have a picture. Wait a minute. They're
it'd be
not gonna have a
less than 10.
picture.
It'd
Does
probably be
someone
like
have a
8.
camera in your thing where they could take a picture? Maybe someone drew it. Hey, they could draw a picture, right?
Well,
But how many children are you going to find in the beehive?
right. I just think it would be like a 5 or above. I mean, if they can't figure it out, then the game is lost. But I would say like a 5 or a 6 maybe for a DC challenge rating. So if you put them to the test and you rolled, and they roll a 1, they're going to go, "Oh, that's probably not him."
That's probably some other missing child, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Okay, let me
Happens
see.
all the time here.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
I
how
would
you
hope.
get all these parentless adventures.
Honestly, David, I think it would be like a 5. It would be a very easy challenge rating. So if you have to put a number on it and you have to roll for it, if they roll a 1 or something, then something ain't right.
Well, that and he tells them that he misses Keeper. Come on, Nate.
Yeah. They get advantage because they have the name of the dog, and also they have the what is it? The name of the boy. So he might just answer to say, "Hey, is your name Georgie?" "Oh no, that's not my name." He's a
Now, if
liar.
he rolls a 1, that's true. You said he
Yeah.
was good at
He
deception.
might lie. He might say, "No, I'm not him." Am I in trouble? Let's
I
see.
bet Georgie is in trouble for not going home for dinner.
Yeah, he's gonna have his butt handed to him.
I know I would be terrified if I were gone for a week from home.
Oh, I'd be getting in trouble there. There would be no.
Yeah, your dad's going to murder you when you get home.
I'm not even worried about my dad. It's my mom.
Fair enough.
She'd scare the crap out of me if I did something wrong like that.
Where's your
Yeah.
token?
I'm working on it.
You're slow.
Guess we'll just have to carry on the conversation without him while he fixes it. Let's see, what other exciting things does Georgie need?
Maybe he has a dog leash on him.
Eh, I don't know if that
Modified leash.
I don't know that that helps the players identify him. And I probably would have dropped the rope when I was being picked up by a bunch of insects.
Or try to use the rope to escape.
Maybe. I don't know
It's
if
not
he,
long enough.
I don't know if Georgie was attempting to avoid escape. I mean, he got to go flying.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was with strangers, but he was off the ground, in the air, floating through the clouds, with a
I
terrifying buzz above his head.
yeah, I think he was at first he was probably enamored by the whole thing.
But a nice big stinger to the gut and feeling nauseous for several days definitely would have cut that down.
You want to talk about getting sympathy.
Yeah,
They stung me in my stomach and I they picked me up and they didn't let me go home.
I could definitely see the bees letting the smallest one go. I mean, he's the least nutritious.
Yeah, Shell, that is a perfect token.
Great.
Perfecto. We call him Flipper. Normally, I don't build like this. I will take all the NPCs, build all those first, and then I will take all the tokens and make them at once. So I'm not going back, and that's what's taking so long, is going back and forth.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's because you have some of your stuff commissioned, so you're still waiting on it. So
That
that's
too.
why you didn't do that first.
Yeah. Normally,
And a
that's how I
peanut
would do it.
gallery.
That's right. So,
Peanut galleries always make this more fun.
yep. There we go. Keeper dog. Let's see.
I guess the big question is, are the lumberjack and the fisherman willing to let just the child go?
Good
Or are they
question.
freaking out because they're getting left behind?
Wouldn't they
Probably.
be in their own little cell? Maybe they wouldn't even know this.
Maybe.
Yeah. You could probably hear them yelling in the background, "Let me out."
Hear the
What the
kids
hell,
growing
man?
up.
That'd be pretty tense if you heard the captors or the captees, the captives. So here's the token.
These eggs are starting to wiggle in here, man. I don't know how much longer I got.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
They're starting to wiggle.
Keeper, you're so pretty.
He is. It's a
I
husky
can see
dog.
his little mandibles moving on the inside. It's God, you gotta let me out of here now.
Like an alien when they're being cocooned.
Uh-huh.
Oh my god. Ah! They're like freaking out because it's on me, it's on me. You like, what's his name? Who played that? Game over, man. Game over. Bill Paxton.
Yeah.
Oh, it
Yeah,
could
that
be
was from Alien, right?
yeah, that could be a very intense scene and might cause it to go a very different way.
They're moving. They're moving. They're moving all over the place.
That's what tables are for.
I like that the other guy's like, man, this is a goddamn town meeting. They were looking at the radar. All right. So there's the husky dog. So
Now we need,
technically, huh?
oh, we need to make the lumberjack now.
Oh yeah, lumberjack. Lumberjack Larry. Let's see.
I
Do
think we
you
had
have
some name
suggestions there?
suggestions. Let me back up here.
Griffin or
We
Zale?
have, yeah, Griffin or Zale.
I like Griffin.
Let me see if I can find you a lumberjack or a, or a fisherman on
Okay.
Pixabay.
All right.
This brought to you by Pixabay.
Pixabay.
He's a much more apt combatant, I assume.
Yeah. Let's see. He's a lumberjack.
He sure is.
Oh my gosh, I'm hearing the Monty. Isn't it Monty Python song? I'm a lumberjack and I'm okay. Isn't that Monty Python?
Absolutely.
+2 on strength.
Not bad.
And I'm going to bring his hit points up to about 7.
He's almost a second level commoner.
What was his name again? Griffin?
Yep. I assume if he's singing that song the whole time, then he's probably not the one freaking out, as he is a lumberjack and he's okay. Oh, they're just nibbling me toes.
I'm okay.
Yeah, I'm fine.
I'm all right.
They're not up to me biceps yet, so you just take your time.
Oh, wow. I'm going to give him a 1d4 plus 2. Oh, he already has plus 2 because of his strength. Yeah. Should have a hand axe, though.
Not having any luck with the lumberjack here. You got like cartoon things or a bunch of plaid or an axe.
So this isn't a throwing axe. This is an actual axe.
I tried man with axe. I couldn't find anything. I tried woman with axe, and I got someone that looks like Lizzie Borden. Hey, your lumberjack doesn't have to be male. Oh, I
No.
have a girl with a huge axe.
How about a bearded man or like a scruffy, 5 o'clock shadow looking guy?
If your lumberjack wasn't male, wouldn't it be a lumberjill?
True.
Her name's Olga.
Olga
No, no, no. I've got a man here, unless Olga has a beard, and she's not a dwarf.
Wow. That just went south real quick.
What? Dwarfs can have beards as a woman?
I can't believe you would talk so terribly about dwarves.
I am a dwarf. My character is, anyway.
So there's Griffin, guy that's yelling like Bill Paxton.
Oh, he's the one who's freaking out? Fair enough.
The lumberjack, yeah. Or should it be the fisherman?
Well, it depends. If he's singing about how he's okay, then it wouldn't make sense for him to be freaking out.
That's true. So he's pretty chill. He's like, yeah, as soon as I can grab my axe, I'm out of here. He'll cut his way through the damn hive. If only he had an axe, he could probably get out, but he'd probably get stung again. He does have a +1 on his con save, so
I imagine the fisherman is pretty used to working with these bugs as well. They make
There's your
great bait.
lumberjack. That the other guy was the dog was a real dog, so you can't have a cartoon face. What's wrong with that guy's face? Fussy.
but he does have that look. He looks like a griffin and somebody that would sing, "I'm a lumberjack and I'm okay."
He's a male model. It says beard face man model.
Yep. Yeah, I know where your mind's going. Okay, so we have a couple NPCs created here, or a few. We got Griffin, we got Georgie, we have Keeper, we have Andre. Do we need? Oh, I gotta make the.
I got a perfect fisherman for you.
Okay.
What was your train of thought?
Andre. So I probably have to make the townsfolks, but I think that's good. We got the people that are captured, and we got some
Yeah,
names.
Jorgie's parents are probably a good place to go next. Or Georgie's parents.
Yeah, but they're probably just gonna be commoners.
Fair.
I'm not gonna detail every single person, but there are gonna be 4 different types, so they're probably farmers, is my guess, or they work in the orchards.
Ah, fair.
I don't see them being shopkeepers for some reason. So the commoners that run stores are going to have different skill sets.
Mm-hmm.
There's your fisherman.
All right, I think we're going to call it. It has been a good solid 2 hours. Sorry about the long, drawn-out story, but they had to get out there so you guys know what's what. Next week we probably won't have to go as long, probably an hour and a half tops, and we'll focus more on building these assets than jaw jacking. Although I do like it's kind of fun though to banter with you guys. Because normally when I do this process, I do everything in one swoop, so I don't have to go back and forth. But that's all right. It's just for fun.
Anytime.
So thank you everyone for coming, and we hope you'll come back next time when we'll have a different guest, and we are looking for other guests. If you are a member of the FGC community and you have at least a Games Master role, you could send me a PM if you would like to be part of the one of our future streams to help give your intake or intake. What the heck is intake? Give your
Feedback.
insight.
Oh,
Yes, I insight
okay.
on what you would think we should do with stuff. So yes, I do have your name, DM David Keith, and we will be calling on you next time we are going to stream.
I
So
think.
thank you again, people.
Yeah. Thanks, folks. Yeah. Hopefully by the end of the month or next month, I'll have some new artwork to add to this. I got to get the tokens for the spider folk, and I think I'm going to have the maps with a border around them instead of just the battle maps. The other thing is we're looking forward to building some of the other encounters, some of the monsters and such, and also maybe during Founders Day I might be testing the module out. So if I can get far enough along,
Well, that's a quick turnaround.
yeah, it's not a finished product. It's just to test the encounters and such. So, but yeah, the
And
turnaround on the art, yeah, that would be quick.
And I wanted to say thank you to all those who followed or subscribed to our channel.
Yeah, it was great. Thanks, guys. We'll see you in the community. Take care. Have a good weekend, and see you next time. Bye bye.